So this week is mostly about select statements, which is actually really nice. I don't know how many of you guys have. I'm sure if you took CIT 111, much of this will probably be a little bit of review, but it's always good because we're going to try to take it one step further, especially down the road. So maybe it's a refresher, but either way, we're going to do it, and it's going to be fun because I love starting with select statements because to me, like that's like what the database is all about, is we're trying, why store the data if we're never going to pull it back out? So I like to start there, and I think it's a good start point because what I always tell people is database stuff, learning databases is kind of a catch-22 to where sometimes it's like to start anywhere you are kind of half expected to know something. So we're going to start from select statements because it's the most basic you can get. And today we're going to basically just dive straight into writing select statements. We're going to practice. Basically, I'm going to take you through every portion of the select statement, and we're just going to talk about how each one works. We're going to build lots of different queries. And hopefully today will be a little shorter. So let's jump right in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into MySQL because I have Sequila on here. There we go. So if I do show databases, I can see Sequila there. We're going to use Sequila. And there we are. I always like to be logged in with the terminal, and you'll see why here in just a minute. I think it helps. It'll make sense here in a minute, I think. So looks like I've got some mess here from last time, so we'll just delete that. All right. So why I like to keep both up is because I actually think it's sometimes easier to kind of see the data in the terminal than it is to try to nitpick it through here. Because on here, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. You can see the tables here, and you can expand and see the columns, but it's hard. You can't see the data type here. So what I like to do is I like to keep my terminal open because we're going to pull the same information and we're gonna go there. So anyway, select statements. Our goal is to get data out of our database, and I actually use select statements all the time just for exploring data. So that's kind of the way I'd like you to approach it is, at the beginning, we're just going to explore our data to see what's there. So, because usually that's step one, right? We want to get some information out. So the first step I'm going to take, I want to show my tables. And I can do that with a terminal there. Let me make this a little bigger. Let me make this a little bigger. There we go. So we can see what tables we have in our database. We have quite a few here. And from the title of the table, you can kind of get a sense of what's there. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm going to start with film. And film is kind of, I guess you could call it the central table in our database because that's kind of what we do is we rent movies. And you'll also notice we have like a customer and stuff like that. But I'm going to start with film, and we're going to just kind of see what's there and get familiar with film. So now to explore another level down. So I just listed all the tables there. I want to take it another step further because we know where we're going now. And let's describe film. And you can type DESC film or the whole word describe, and it will show you, and I have mine zoomed in so you can see it, but usually it's prettier. But you can see all the different columns that are there. Normally this would look a little bit better. In fact, we can zoom out, and I know that makes it hard for you to see, but that's what it should look like on yours. I just have mine zoomed super in so you can see the text a little better. But basically what it's telling us is all the different fields in our database, as well as the data type and some other information, which we will get to later. But I'm going to real quick do the same thing here just so we can see it. And so if you're in MySQL Workbench, you can go to the table you want and hit this little, it's this little gear thing, or the wrench, sorry. And you can click that and it will bring up a tab where you can see all the similar information. So we can see the columns, the data types, so on and so forth. I like to keep my terminal up because I use the terminal a lot, and it's two windows. That way I don't have to sit here and flip back and forth. I can kind of keep it up and work on it. So anyways, let's actually pull some information out of here. So the most basic query you can write is select asterisk from, and we're going to select it from film. And what the asterisk means is it means everything. So we're going to select all the columns from film. So let's run this and let's see what we get. Oh, and I need to switch this because we never use Sequila. There we go. Let's try that again. Perfect. Hide that. Let's bring this up. All right, so we just selected everything from Sequila, and you can see that we get all the columns. So basically, this query will give us the whole table, which sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. Now, I like to start there because it's good sometimes to kind of get familiar with your data, especially if you're like, oh, what is in description? What is in language ID? What is in rental duration? Like, what kind of data is it? What is it saying? Because a lot of times once you see it, you're like, oh, like rental rate. What is rental rate? Oh, that looks like the dollar amount that you pay per night, probably. Another little trick that I like to do just when you're exploring is you can limit how many rows are returned. So if I say limit 100 here, I'm only going to get the first 100 rows instead of everything. And so if you're working with a huge data set, but you just want kind of a sample to kind of wrap your head around what's there, that limit is a really good option, because a lot of times your queries will take 5 minutes to run. And so you don't want to have to sit there and test your query and wait 5 minutes in between every time. So you can kind of say limit 100 to kind of make that a little quicker. So that's a good little trick. All right, so that's kind of the basic if you just want to see everything. And so now what we want to do is we want to actually pull the information we want, because we just have a lot of stuff right now. And we could just export this, put it in Excel and take the columns we want out, but you're going to find that it's way more efficient to do it with SQL. So now let's actually just pull some information we want. So we want the film title, the name of the film. Let's skip the description. Let's get the description. Let's say we want the title, the description, the rental rate. Let's see what that is. Rental rate. And the replacement. What is it called? Replacement cost. Let's do that. And we are getting that from film. All right. So just to break this down a little, when you write your select statement, select obviously is kind of like the command word, right? What are we doing? We're selecting some data. And then I like to think of this, well, what are you selecting? Well, I want, and this is where you specify what columns you want. So I want all the titles, all the descriptions, all the rental rates, all the replacement costs. And then the next step is to say, well, okay, you told me what you want, where are you getting it from? And so that's when you say from, and then you specify the name of the table. So in this case, we say from film. So let's go ahead and run this. Let me try that again. There we go. And you can see that now we have our, how did that work? I'm pushing the wrong button here. Oh, I got an error somewhere, and it's probably because I have a column misnamed. Okay, so here's a good example of an error. And just so you know, the errors in MySQL sometimes, or in Workbench, sometimes are not exactly helpful. So we can see here error code 1054, unknown column replace cost in field list. So that column doesn't exist, so we need to have replacement cost. Try running it, and there we go. Now we get results. And we get the title, the description, the rental rate, and the replacement cost. Now, let's say that we want to take this another step further, because it's great to have everything, but most of the time we're looking for specific things, right? So for example, if we only want, let's say that we're running a web front for this and we say, oh, there's filters, and the user clicks the filter that says, I want movies that are only rated PG. Right. Pretty standard stuff. We want only films that are rated PG. So, they click that. We're looking for a nice family friendly movie for the kids. We click it and we have to write that query that pulls the information back out to display to the person so they can say, oh, what movies are available to rent. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to give them the title, the description, and the rental rate. Let's take replacement cost out of there because it doesn't really fit our scenario very well, because we just kind of want to say, hey, here's the movie, here's the description, and here's the rental rate. So now we're going to say where, and the where clause is how we filter out records. So basic table structure, we have columns, and then each one of these guys is a record. We have different records here. And we don't want all of the records, we just want some of them. So that's when the where clause comes in, is we can filter out certain records. So in this case, we're going to say where, and we're going to take a look over here and our rating, where rating is equal to PG. And you know what, just let's add rating here, because that's probably a good thing to show to our end users. We go ahead and run that. Let's scroll over. And you can see now that we get our description and our rental rate. I'm going to squeeze this. Description gets a little long. Now you only see movies that have a rating of PG. So that's how we filtered out everything else. We're only getting records where rating is equal to PG. And that's one of the things that I like is about SQL, is that it reads kind of normal. Like the way you read it, it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, I want the title, the description, rental rate, and rating from film where rating is equal to PG. That kind of reads like English. And that's kind of what I like about it. Because imagine that all these were movies on a shelf, like in a library. If someone said, hey, I want all the movies and from film where the rating is equal to PG, you could probably just point them there. Or sometimes not. It depends on how you have it organized, which we get to in a minute, which is not today but later, which is indexing. But anyways, that's the where clause. So that was good. Now let's add one more, because let's say that they say, oh, I also only want movies that are 99 cents a night. So we're going to add another filter here, and we're going to say, and rental rate is equal to, or we want it less than 99 cents. So let's say less than or equal to 0.99. So now let's take a look, and now we should only get rentals that are 99 cents or less, which it looks like in this case, they're all 99 cents. So you can add multiple, in fact, you can add tons of filters, and you can combine them. It's just like other logic where you can kind of add all this logic to it, right? So let's say that the rating is PG. Let's say we kind of want like a combination, right? Let's say that we're willing to pay more for, let's say kids are renting this. They're like, okay, it's coming out of your pocket. So let's say that you can either get a PG movie for 99 cents, or you can get a PG, and I'm not sure if that's PG-13 or not. And this is where I really like having a terminal, because I want to know what different ratings are there. How do they spell their ratings? So I'm going to select distinct rating from film. And now I get all the unique values under rating. So in this case, I can see that their rating is PG-13. So let's say PG-13. And let's say we want it, the teenagers are willing to pay a little bit more for that movie, right? So now we have a combination. So if the movie is, we either have movies that are PG and less than or equal to 99 cents, or we have PG-13 movies that are either 99 cents or $2. So you can kind of write different logic. So you have and or to kind of combine these different pieces together to kind of build your logic. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff. If I'm going really, really slow and everyone's just like, oh, come on, like this is so basic, just let me know. But try to go slow so no one gets lost. And just so you know, you can parentheses as much as you want. I like using parentheses even if they're not necessarily needed because it makes it easier to read. Just for me, like I think it just helps make it easier to read. So whenever I'm combining logic, I like to use parentheses. All right. And just so you know, just to kind of showcase what we did over here with this distinct. So what distinct does is it shows uniqueness. So if I select a rental rate from film, you'll notice that I have $4.99, $2.99, $2.99, $2.99, $2.99, you know, so I'm seeing duplicates, right? And so what's really nice about distinct is, oh, I just want to see like all the possibilities, you know, because I'm exploring, right? I just want to know, hey, what kind of rental rates does our store offer? So you can add distinct there. And what it's going to do is it's going to return unique values. And in this case, we only, and specifically unique records, where we only have one column here, it's going to return a distinct rental rate. Now, if we had multiple columns, $2.99 might be in there twice, depending on what we have for our other columns, but every row will be unique. So, you know, we can't have Todd Smith twice, but we can have Todd Henry and Todd Williams, if that makes sense. So unique values, unique records. So for our store, we have three different pricings. We have 99 cents, $4.99, $2.99. So that distinct is kind of a nice little thing when you're kind of looking to say, oh, what are the different options here? Because I'm trying to filter, how do they spell it? It just makes it really nice and easy. Nice and easy to explore your data. All right, so let's go one more step further. And I think for this one, we might, let's show tables again. Let's switch our tables up just a little bit. We are going to look at, let's see what's in rental. We're going to describe rental. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for where the money is, because we kind of want to do some money stuff. So there's not money in there, it doesn't look like. So let's try payment. There we go. We see some money there. So you can see we have an amount and we have a rental ID. So that's kind of how we tie all that together. But really quick, we just want to see what's going on with this table, because we kind of want to see, let's say that your boss comes to you and he says, hey, how much money do we have? How much revenue outstanding do we have? So how many people have rented movies that haven't returned them that we're going to collect on? Because we're trying to do our budget. You know, do we have enough money to buy 4 copies of the Lord of the Rings extended edition trilogy on Blu-ray, right? So we want to know our budget. So we want to get that amount. So let's start from the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything from that table. It's kind of what I like to do from payment. All right, so we have all of our payments here, and really this isn't a good scenario. We want to see how much money we made in the last month. And since this is kind of old, you can see that our payment dates are like 2005. So let's say we want to know how much we made in a given month. And let's say we want to buy month. Let's say for the year 2005, how much money did we make per month? That's kind of the question. So let's actually write that. So I'm going to leave that right there. We're going to select, and I like to kind of start basic and then work down. So we're going to select the payment date. and the amount. All right, so now we have all of our payment dates and all of our amounts. And you'll notice that our date is actually a date time. And what that means is it's not just a date, it's actually date plus time, which can make it interesting. And I'll show you that, because what we really want is we kind of want like, oh, how many in the year 2005 and how many in the month. And so what we need to do is we need to aggregate, because we want to combine this stuff down. But the problem is that how no one's, people don't swipe their cards, like 100 people don't swipe their cards all at the same exact time. But what we can do is we can get it down to month and year. So really what we want is let's start with year. So let's get the year from payment date. We're going to call that payment year. And that's how we rename our columns. And then we're going to get the month of payment date.
So are year and month keywords that are already included?
Yeah, and these are functions. So really what we're doing is we're passing payment date to this function called year, and it's going to take out year for us, so we don't have to try to like parse it all out. So you see, as soon as I run that, now we kind of have the month and the year in numbers. And what's cool is there's lots of different functions, and you don't need to know these functions right now. But I'm trying to get to a point where I can show you another section of the select clause, which is the group by. But to do that, we have to aggregate. And so you don't need to know. We're going to cover year and month and a lot of other functions in a future week. So don't stress too much about that, but just know that what it's doing is it's kind of parsing out that date for us. Now what's cool is there's lots of different variants of some of these. So like month name. So like if I want to actually have the month name, I can just use that function instead. And then what's nice is we can even go a step further and actually concatenate this, because a lot of times, if we're doing this for a nice like report, let's say to like a board of directors or something, we want it to look pretty, right? And so let's combine that together. Let's say we want like the month year kind of situation. So then in that case, we'd go, let's say month name and payment date. And let's put a hyphen in there. And then we want the year of payment date. And let's just call that period. Make sure that works. And now you can see we get the month with the year, which is nice for reporting because, it just makes it easy. And you'll notice now that we still have like duplicates, right? So like May 2005, we have a bunch in June. And what we want to do is we want to combine all that up. We want to make it so that is total, right? We want to sum that. And so that's what we're going to do. And just, this is called aggregation. And aggregation is anytime we're taking multiple rows like these here, and we want to roll them up so it just shows as one. So instead of having, 6 rows for June 2005, we want to have one row with the sum of all of these. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say, we're going to call that total revenue. And I'm going to run this, and it should give us an error. And I'm going to run this in the terminal just so we can see that error a little bit more clearly. And you'll notice here that it says in an aggregated query without a group by, yada, yada, yada. So basically what it's saying is, hey, you're trying to do aggregation without a group by. And so that leads us to the whole goal of this, which is what is the group by clause? And the group by clause is how we specify, it's how we tell the computer what it is that we want to roll up. So if we go back to our previous example here, let's take out our alias. So if I run this again and go back to what we were talking about, how we want to roll this up, basically we have to tell the computer, hey, what column do you want to be unique, right? Or what columns do you want to be unique? As far as, what columns are okay to combine up together. And so in this case, June 2005 is what we want to collapse into, those are all the duplicate columns that we kind of want combined. And the sum is what we are aggregating. So we want to group by, not groupie by, we want to group by. And then what I like to do is I like to just take what we have here, copy it, and we're going to paste it. So basically we're saying, hey, based on this information, give me the amount for this information. So for the month and the year, give me the sum of the amount. So let's go ahead and run this. And now you'll notice that we get the results that we want. We get our period, and then we get our total payment, which is our total revenue. So you can see that like May 2005, we did $4,824 worth of revenue. And then in June of 2005, we really upped our game. So our store is actually performing extremely well, because, from May to June, we like almost double our revenue. And then from June to July, we do extremely well. And then August, we kind of take a little downward turn. And then that's all basically the sample data we have. It looks like we did do something in February, but who knows? Maybe our store burnt down and we're just restarting in February. I don't know. But anyways, that's a good scenario. And I think the group by, you can use group by for a lot of things. For example, let's take a look at our payment. So let's say we want to see how many, which this one's a little easier. Let's grab this again. We're going to kind of use the same table, but instead of the month and the year, we want to, let's say we're giving out bonuses to the staff who took the most payments, or, we just want to give them a little something. Maybe like, they're good employees. We just kind of want to see, hey, who like drives the most sales? And so we can take a look at that. And so again, I like to start basic. So we're getting the staff ID. And in this case, we don't have the staff name. We're going to learn how to get that in the future, but just trying to keep it a little more specific to select statements. So we have the staff ID, which we know who that person is, and the amount. And what we want to do is we want to say, okay, during our time open as a store, which one of our employees have processed the most money? And so let's do a little pop quiz. We're going to do a group by here because we want to sum the amount. We want to sum the amount. What will we put as the group by column here? Feel free to throw it in the chat if you want to. What do we put in this group by to make this query work? Because we are aggregating on amount. Staff ID, perfect. Yep. Because that's the one we kind of want to roll up. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And now you can see that, oh, we only have two employees, and they're both about neck and neck. In fact, it looks like one person might have worked one more day than the other one, and it might have been that day in February. So nothing too crazy there, but that's aggregation, and that's the group by. So we can actually combine this all. So let's take this one step further, because we're gonna use all three clauses. So we're gonna say where, and we're gonna say where the year, the payment date is equal to 2005. So let's say we want to exclude that February 2006. If you remember, we saw that February 2006. We just want this for 2005. So let's go ahead and run this and see what our results are now. Okay, so now you can see that we have a little bit of a different story. You can see that you can combine all these. You don't necessarily need them all, but you can combine them all. for a lot of stuff. So anyways, that is select statements in a nutshell. Again, I kind of wanted to keep this short without rambling on too much. And we also are going to cover the final project because I want you to get really thinking about it because we're going to start that next week. So does anyone have any questions before we switch gears? Does anyone have any questions about select statements? And I know you probably haven't dove in too much, but anything right off the cuff that you might want to see or that you're confused about? Going once, going twice. We can come back to it again if something comes up, but all right. All right, yeah, if you have technical problems, just hang around. We can try to get those solved after. Cool. Cool. All right, I'm going to close this window. I'm going to close this window. We're going to talk about the final options here. All right, let me find it here. All right. I think that was in week 3, correct? Three final options right here. Okay. All right, so the final project. So it replaces, just to refresh, it replaces the final exam. So you have two options. You can either take the final exam, which is a multiple choice quiz based on all of the questions that you might have had throughout your weekly quizzes, or you can do this final project. And honestly, I think, and what I like about this page is it kind of alludes to it. And I've said this before, I really think the final project is way more beneficial. And I think if you do it in increments, it's actually probably less time, but the problem is you can't be a procrastinator like we many do on tests and stuff. So in honestly, almost can guarantee that if you do a little bit every week and just meet the requirements, like your grade on the final project is going to be higher than the exam, unless you're just a great test taker. Which, I mean, if you want to do that option, that is perfectly fine. But if it were me, I'd do the final project because I think it's more fun. But anyways, we're going to kind of go over the deliverables because I think that will help you figure out a good scope and a good idea. And then maybe what I'll do is I will kind of show you maybe what I would go about doing. And then Isaac asked, can you do both? And yes, you can do both, but it's not like you get points from both. What I'll do is I'll just exclude, because what I do is if you do the final project, I just exempt the final exam and vice versa. So if you do both, you will just the highest score. And you can honestly, and what I would do is I would do the final project, because I think it makes the papers easier, because starting in week 3, we'll have different prompts for the paper. And also if you're doing the final project, you can do the paper on your final project. So that way, basically what I hope is that what we learn every week leads and kind of helps you build along the way your final project. And that's kind of the way I'm going to explain this and kind of where I would start. And we're going to kind of go from there. But you can do both. Yeah, I just, I don't think you will because most of the time, unless, like I said, unless you procrastinate, you're going to end up with, you're going to have one done before the other. Like if you're doing the final project, it'll be done and probably graded before you ever kind of want to, or it'll be so well done, it'll be so much done, you're gonna be like, why would I even waste my time taking the exam? But you're more than welcome to. Anyways, let's dive into what our final project requires. And then we'll talk about what I would kind of recommend as the best way to go about this. So as far as deliverables, so what you're going to have to submit to me when it's done is a few things. So the first thing is your entity relationship ERD model for a real world application with a minimum of 12 tables. So that what that is it's kind of just like a diagram that shows here. Let me just build one for you. What an ERD is, and we're going to build one for our Sequila database. Which one was it? Right there. My password isn't a secret. It is School Rocks. Okay. We're going to do it for Sequila. Finished. We just want tables. All right, so this is what we call an ERD diagram, an entity relationship diagram. And basically what it is it just shows where and how things are connected. You can see the little lines between them. So we can kind of see. So just like we talked about how things are connected. So let's do this. So like if we wanted to see how are film actor and actor all intertwined, we can go ahead and look. So we have a film, and the film actor table connects an actor with a film, because a film can have multiple actors in it. And that's what that little crowfoot notation means right there, is it means it's a one-to-many relationship. So that means that a film can have multiple actors, and an actor can be in multiple films. So that's what that film actor table does, is it connects films with actors. So if we said, oh, for Jurassic Park, what were all the actors in that film? We would use film actor for that. But anyways, this is the ERD diagram. And what's nice is you don't have to build this from scratch. So, and there's actually a couple ways to do this. You can actually build your entire database just by clicking and dragging. So like if I wanted to add a new table, I could just click this and add a new table. And I don't know where I put it, but it's here somewhere. Let's try it again. Oh, I think I clicked. There we go. So I can actually add a new table here, and then I can just like add columns to it and kind of build it out that way. So like, I think the barrier to entry on this project is not very high, because you can build the ERD and the database all in one, or you can build the database and then just generate the ERD off of it, just like I did. So as far as a deliverable, to me, this is almost just like a one-step thing. Just generate it and export it. So nice and easy. Nothing too complicated there. The other thing you're going to need are test cases, and a test case is an actual select statement or an insert statement. Basically, it's a query command or a SQL command, just like the ones we wrote earlier, where I kind of gave you those scenarios. And you were going to have to build some of those to kind of say like, hey, this is how the application works. And I'll walk you through some of those here in just a minute. And then, so the CRUD, and what they mean by CRUD is like create, read, update, delete. So you have to have a couple of those. Like create is how do you create a record? How do you create a table? And again, we'll walk you through some examples. And then an index that maps user interface, mock up a UI, and then your test case. So that really, these kind of make up this. And I'll walk you through that because that's where most people get hung up, but it's not too complicated. And then the last thing is just a PowerPoint presentation to describe why you did what you did, which everyone should know what PowerPoint is and how to work that. But anyways, just to kind of, I guess, put it into human terms, kind of sum up what the whole thing is. Basically, you're building an application or a project. You're building a project, and your whole purpose is you got to put together enough evidence to convince me, the board of directors, the people that are going to write you that multi-million-dollar check, why I should write you that check to build this, essentially. And don't get too scared because it doesn't have to be that complicated. In fact, I'll walk you through a short one right now. I'm just going to make it nice and easy and kind of walk you through. And in fact, let me see if I have one from last term because I think there was a really good one from last term. Let me make sure I still have it here. For 2021, there it is. Perfect. Let me make sure I can hide the name on this. Because there was some really good ones, and obviously some are more complex than others, but yeah, it doesn't have to be too overly creative. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right one here. All right. Let me just hide my screen real quick just so I make sure I don't share anything. Perfect. All right, let me reshare. All right, so here is, I'm just gonna walk you through the PowerPoint because I think they kind of put it all there. And sorry, I don't have PowerPoint on my Linux machine, so some of the things might not be laid out quite as pretty as they're supposed to, but you'll get the idea. So you can see here in the presentation, he has the purpose of the app. And then what he has is he kind of maps certain things to actual stuff. So like in this case, if I type in my username, type in the password and hit login, how do I check that, or how do I do that? And and it doesn't have to be perfect. Really it's just kind of like a proof of concept, if you will. So you can see here that he has obtaining username and password because we obviously would need to check, hey, what's the password and username so we can match and make sure they typed in the right password. And then from here, you can see where they actually, kind of showed like what things do with different buttons. And then from there went on, and you can see when you fill in a form, here's his, and so when we go back to that CRUD, this is kind of what it's talking about. So when you click the plus, when you fill in the data in the main form, it inserts some information, right? Insert some information there, go on to a lot of different stuff. So anyways, you can kind of see like how that works and how you map your UI to different select statements. And that's essentially what it is. And you can see like, oh, if I hit the trash can, it deletes a certain record, right? And so that's what the CRUD is it's a just kind of basic basic mapping. Now that one was pretty detailed, right? That's kind of why I showed you that one. Obviously, you don't need to have it built. In fact, a lot of the examples that I gave last term, which I will when we get closer, is actually I just took a pencil, notebook type stuff where I took a pencil and kind of just drew it. And you can just take a picture of that and map it out. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Yeah, that's kind of the final project in a nutshell. Is you're going to have to kind of build it. You're going to have to build the database. The database is really the one technical thing you have to build, which makes sense because it's the class. But from there, all you have to do is kind of like give proof of concept to say like, hey, this is what my application is going to do. This is what it looks like. And then a few cases where, hey, if I click this button, this is the code that runs, or this is the select statement. And it's a test case. So it's not like you have to be specific. You like that one, he gave just some test data. Like, oh, if I click add this button, it inserts this address, and you can make up the address, so on and so forth. I'm sorry, I missed the question to zoom in. I'm guessing, is that here? I'm not sure where that is, but maybe I'm past it already, and I apologize. Does that help? I guess, does anyone have any questions about the final course? At least kind of like the overview. Because obviously, like what I want you to do is the next week, think about something you could do. And just to give you some ideas, it doesn't have to be anything life changing. Someone did like a really basic, a little system to track and schedule music lessons, because I guess she did music lessons. So she wrote one to kind of track and schedule that. Someone else did one that would track like recipes for making homemade soap, which I never knew people made homemade soap, but you can do that. Lots of others. That one that we showed was actually a really cool one. They were building a COVID symptom tracker, I believe, if I remember correctly, which is also kind of cool. So anyways, the sky's the limit on what you want. The only rule that like has to do with scope is you have to have a minimum of 12 tables, which trust me will add up, and we can always make more tables. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. What I would do is try to think of a project, and if you want to bounce those kind of off me, go ahead. More than happy to do that. It does not have to take input. Nope, this is all test case. So everything can kind of be hand coded. So yeah, it doesn't actually have to be like this functioning thing. The database does, but all your like input, like, oh, if I add a record, you don't have to actually handle that data. You can just kind of make one. So like if it were me gonna do it, I could just really quickly don't save. I could really quickly just let me just bring up a text editor. So like, let's say I was going to design one that would let people, what's a good one? Let's say I wanted to let people, let's say I want to build a system that lets restaurants digitize their menus and put them online, right? So I want to just make like a really good place where all these little small town restaurants that don't have their own website can put their menu and prices online and manage that really easy. And so let's say I have a little button that's a plus. I want to add a menu item. So I would just, for my test case, I would just say insert into menu item. Let's say that menu item has a name, description, let's say price. And then, we haven't covered this yet, but it's as easy as this, like chicken fried steak. So we're just going to kind of just throw some money in here, and we're going to charge a high price for that chicken fried steak, $20. Sorry, that's really zoomed out again. I don't know how to zoom on this one. Under preferences, let me font and color. We're gonna make this big. There we go. Sorry, I have all my other stuff set up so you can see it easier, but not that one. Okay, so something like that, and this is all you need. So like as far as our CRUD operations, this one fulfills the create one. So like that's one done. And like let's say, oh, I want to delete a menu item. Delete from menu item where name is equal to chicken fried steak. That's simple. We have two of our CRUD things done for that table. Now you don't have to have them all. I kind of just like want a good portion. Basically, go through a flow. Basically, so like for example, if I'm doing this, and I wish I could draw better. If I was doing this, I would. In fact, let me just try to draw. Annotate. So if I was just wanting to do my basic UI, right? It's a website. So here's my web page. And here's a list of their menu items. They have yada, yada. Let's say there's a little plus button right here. So basically what I would do is I would just map this to this. Let's say there's a little trash can here. Trash can button on every one of those. I would just map that to that, so on and so forth. And you don't have to do it for every table, but walk through an entire flow. So like for in this case, what I would do is I would want to show one for the login screen. I would want to show one for, where like this, where it lists their stuff. And this is again, where we would probably want to, in this case, let's do one more where we're going to do a select, which is actually a read in our CRUD. Let's select the name, description. Let's just do the name and the price. Our menu item. So that's what we want to show. Where, and let's say our store is where store ID, which we didn't insert above, is equal to, let's just say 1. So this is where we get like all this stuff to list. And then from there, I can, how do I do this? Okay, then this would go, that's how we get that data, and this would show like title, price, it doesn't have to be like fancy. And I hope you can draw a little better than me, but yeah. Ditto, 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 and ditto. So yeah, something like that to where you can kind of like show like, hey, this is where it shows all my menu items. This is how I insert them. This is how I delete them. How do I update them? And that might be another screen. Like let's say I click on a record, boom, click on it, and it takes me to another screen. And it has like our little menu item. So it has a name, and right here it has price. Now we make it look nice. It has a little box here where you can edit the description. And these are all editable fields. So like we have an editable name, editable price, and down here we have our save button. And that when we update it, we and that's the R or the U. We say update menu item. That name equal to and say we get had, and all of a sudden people know that it's not actually chicken fried steak.
Nice.
So it can be nice and simple. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. And there's our update, right? And so we have our create, we have our read, we have our update and our delete. So there's a good example of all three of those. And we're going to go, you don't need to know those now. What I would start doing, but just so you know kind of the scope, it's not too complicated. But where I would start is I would think of an idea and then maybe start like doing like some simple mock-ups like this. Do some simple mock-ups so you can kind of explain the flow. And then from there, because as we go along, we're going to start learning a little bit more about SQL and tables and whatnot. And so what I would do is start with this, because this is what you can start with, right? Everyone can come up with an idea and kind of design how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. And then as we go along, we can start actually building the database. We can create the tables. We can start writing our CRUD operations and that kind of stuff. And we can do that along the way. So like in this case, we learned how to write select statements. And so, and we're going to hit select statements again in the future, more in more depth, which is what you need. So what I would do is start with this. And every week, what I'll do is I'll let you know, starting in week 3, I'll let you know like, hey, this is what we're focusing on. And maybe this is how you apply it to your project. This is what you should work on. And ideally the goal is by the time we hit even week 11, you're going to be mostly done if not all the way done, which I know is always nice to kind of be done with a final before it's even finals week. So I get that. So yeah, that's kind of that in a nutshell. And then from there, it's pretty simple to kind of just do the rest. Does anyone have any questions? You got a recipe for that? I mean, I'm sure it's not too hard. You get a cat and fry it up. But anyways, does anyone have any questions about the final project? And disclaimer, I do not condone animal cruelty or yep, exactly, cat fat and splat. All right. Yeah, so hopefully that got you thinking a little bit. Be thinking about it, because next week we're gonna start kind of hitting that a little harder. And like I said, based on that, you're gonna actually see a new kind of section in the paper prompt where it'll say, if you're doing a final project, you can do this instead. Where basically it's going to be all related, but I'm hoping what's really nice about the final project and the way we can interact that with the papers is because honestly, this is something that you'll do out there in the real world. You'll do this all the time. It's great, and I think it brings it all together. And what's nice is every week, the paper and how it connects is going to be, what did you do? What did you learn? And what would you have done different in now that you know X, Y, or Z? And I think that exercise is actually really good. I actually do it every week. I try to kind of like set aside like my Fridays. I like to set aside a little time to say like, okay, like what things did I learn and this week, and I jot those down. And so I kind of keep like a little running list of like, oh, these are like the key things that I want to make sure that I don't ever do again, kind of thing, or keep doing. And I think that'll be a good exercise. Anyways, we've been an hour, so I don't want to keep you any longer. Does anyone have any last minute questions? And if you have like, one-offs, technical issues, just hang around and we can solve those as well. Does anyone have any questions about final project or just generic?
The reverse engineering website for this week.
Uh-huh.
So we can pick any website we want, or is it the one case study? I'm just trying to figure that out.
I will let you do whichever one you want. I just when you do it, just include a link to it, and you can do whatever one you want. It's way more interesting that way, and yeah, it'll be more fun.
And then when you record in Zoom, you want us to have our cameras on to see us, or do you want to use, well, it says use Zoom, but I've used Loom where you have a camera and a presentation.
It is completely up to you. Completely up to you. I don't care if you don't have to show your face. Like, to me, like when I'm driving my computer and doing a presentation, like I just get so self-conscious about what I do with my face while I'm doing it. So you don't have to by any means.
Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. If you don't need to show your face, yeah. If you don't want to. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. But yeah. All right. Good question. Good question. Now, the reverse engineering of the website is going to actually be a lot of fun. And I think it's a good practice to kind of wrap your head around that final project. Because you'll be doing something similar, just instead of reverse engineering it, you're going to build it from the ground up kind of a thing. So, and it doesn't have to be a website, just, for your final project. It can be an app. It can be, it just, obviously it has to have a UI of some sort. So it can be, it can be anything. It could be a desktop application, a mobile app, a website, you name it. No, attendance is not required for these meetings. My only rule is there has to be at least a few people here, or I don't record it, because then yeah, I do have recordings from last semester. So if there's only a few people, it's kind of weird just to like ramble on. So most of the time what we do is we just kind of ask questions, go through it. But if there's enough people, so if there's a few people, I'll record it, no problem. But no, you don't have to be here at all. All right, perfect. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. So I don't want to keep you any longer. So if something comes up, if you have any questions about some possible ideas, or if you need help brainstorming an idea, if you're just complete drawing a blank on your final project, just shoot me a direct message on Teams, because I've got lots up there in the old Noodle, and I can also give you a generic one that works for everybody. So if that's you, just let me know, but hopefully there's something that you are a little bit more passionate about. But anyways, good luck this week. If anything comes up, just let me know.